There are different types through the years, as I think they've been perfecting this process as
Mm-hmm.
well. You heard about people seeing their children and they would be really sickly looking, pale skin, really large blue eyes, and stringy hair. Then you have the black-eyed kids. That was kind of the next phase of it. And that's where my hybrid children fell in. And I have seen
Jeez.
that. And they look like what is described as the black-eyed kids.
A Kodega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with a Kodega and sharing one of yours. Click that like. Yeah! If you're new here, subscribe and have the bell hit for notifications to stay up to date on all of the new content. All right, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'd just like to say thank you for joining me at the Kodega's Codex of Curiosities. Tonight, I have Karin Wilkinson on, and I've been looking forward to this interview for quite some time. She's close with L.A. Marzulli, and she has some experiences we're going to talk about, and who knows what we're going to get into. I'm looking forward to that conversation. But let's take care of some housekeeping. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been sharing the show, commenting. I've been getting actually a lot of comments, a lot of likes lately, and it really helps me out with the YouTube algorithms. We all know how those are, trying to beat them, trying to solve them. But really, the only way that I can know how to do it is just having my viewers like and comment. And of course, only like if you like the show. Don't feel that you're pressured to do that. But yeah, so if you're listening on audio, just a reminder that I have more shows coming to the YouTube platform instead of the audio platform. So, such as I will be re-releasing a Mary Rodwell, a UFOologist from Australia, and that one's going to be pulling that one out from the archives, and I've kind of touched it up, and we're going to having that one. There's also a couple other episodes that I've released as well. So if you are listening, make sure you come in over and watch. Now, also, I have Patreon. $5 membership gets you a big shout out and really helps me out. $25 membership gets you some shirts and some other merch. And what that does is it keeps everything free. You know, what I mean is that there's no paywall. I don't want a paywall. I don't want people paying for episodes. I want all these episodes for everyone to listen to, so that if you're listening to something and you're like, oh my gosh, that happened to me, you're going to come on. So I want to make sure they're all there for everyone. And if you had similar experiences, please contact me at codexofcuriosities@gmail.com. One last thing, I also have a merch store. So I'd like you guys to go check that out. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Karin on. All right, Karin, welcome to Kodega's Codex of Curiosities.
Hi, Rye. How are you? I'm so pleased to be here with you tonight. I've been looking forward to this as well. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate that. I know I had some scheduling issues where we just couldn't make it happen, and so finally, and you were so I don't know, just so nice, and we're able to make this work tonight. So I really want to say thank you so much. And for my viewers and listeners who have not heard of Karin, which I'm sure many of them have, but who have not, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself and where they can find you and anything else you want to talk about?
Great. Well, thank you so much. Yes. And I know, those things happen all the time for us. So
Of
not a
course.
problem. Just happy to be here tonight. And with the beautiful background that you have, enjoyed watching the sunset behind you tonight.
Yeah, it's disappearing. It disappears
It's
fast
very
though.
fast, right? But my name is Karin Wilkinson, and I'm the author of the book Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. It is published through L.A. Marzulli's publishing company, Spiral of Life, and it is available exclusively at lamarzulli.com or lamarzulli.net, and that's lamarzulli.com or .net. And you can find it under his store tab. And as of right now, this is April 18th. He's running a special where if you buy my book, you get his book, UFO Disclosure, free with it. So it's a buy one, get one. So online only. So check it out. We're trying to kind of have specials going all the time. So keep an eye out for different ones coming up. And you can find me at my website, KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com, and you can reach me that way too. That's the best way to reach me if you want to send me a message. I love getting messages from people. It does take me a while to get back sometimes, but I will get back to you. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram under my name. Just look for the blue check mark. You'll know you found me. And that is not the best way to get in touch with me because I get a lot of messages that way, as you probably know, right?
Yeah.
And so those are hard to get through. So you might not hear back from me if you reach out that way, but definitely send me a message through my website. That's the best way to find me. And then events. If you follow along the events page from L.A. Marzulli's website, I am at most of those same events. So I'm not sure when this will air, but the next one will be in Jupiter, Florida on April 26th and 27th. And I'll
Unfortunately, yeah, this one it's about a month. I'm at
okay,
about a month from interview to
so
then. So
there we
what do we
go.
got
So
going on in May? Maybe like
May,
May 16th and after.
yeah, let's see. I've got one in early May, so that one. But in June, June 27th through the 30th, I'll be at the Prophecy Watchers Conference in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Cool.
And I'm not sure exactly what I'll be doing there, but I will be definitely at the table with our books and everything and talking to people and signing books and just getting to meet people. And that's just always such a wonderful, amazing conference. I just was at their studios recording the other day and just had a wonderful time meeting everyone there and looking forward to that conference. And in July, I will be at the Go Therefore conference in Brookville, Ohio. Really looking forward to that one too. My friend Vicki Joy Anderson will be there, who I'm hoping you'll get to have on your show soon. She's a
Definitely.
great friend as well. And she also has a book published through L.A. Marzulli's publishing company, and her book is called They Only Come Out at Night. Another book I just highly, highly recommend. It goes really well hand in hand kind of with mine as far as everything that we discussed. So they're very compatible with each other. So yeah, highly recommend checking those out and checking out everything on L.A. Marzulli's website. He's got an incredible library of just movies and books and videos. Mine is just one little thing in the masses that he has available. So I'm
He
just honored
has
to
a
be a part
ton.
of that.
Of
Yes, he
course.
does.
Yeah,
And
it's like it's his own streaming service pretty much, he
yes,
has that.
it is.
Yes.
Yes. And you can stream those videos, you can buy them or rent them, or you can purchase them. I like to have the videos in hand because you never know when streaming will go down and I can always watch them. I am featured in the UFO series. This one, he has 8 movies out total. I'm in the 4th one and the 6th one. And the last 2 he did were on Roswell, and they're amazing. Get ready for the 9th one. It's coming out soon. I won't talk about that because it's not out yet, but it will be soon. So keep an eye out for that. He's always working on something. So I know that's a lot of information, but I'll give you all that for the show notes. And again, you can just type in my name somewhere, and hopefully you'll be able to find me. So,
Yeah, that's how I got a hold of you was through your website, and I sent you an email, and you replied back instantly. I would almost say like under a day. I was like, wow, that's awesome. I was very excited for that. I know talked to, as soon as I heard your interview actually on the confessionals, I talked with a friend of mine who have interviewed a couple of times. Her name is Ginger, and she's had some abductions, and they, she has a lot of trauma from them. And I said, you got to listen to Karen's to this episode here on the confessionals. And she heard it and she was like, oh my gosh. So, I need to talk to her. I want to get her book. And
Oh,
yeah,
cool. Well, good.
yeah.
I hope she reaches out to me. I don't remember talking to a Ginger, but so many
No,
wonderful people have reached out. So I hope she does if she wants to. I'll look for
she
that.
hasn't, but she is actually in the process, and I'm helping her do this, because she feels quite empowered. Like, we were the first people, like, when I had actually a joint podcast, we were the first people to ever interview her and talk to her about her experiences. And since then, she kind of has gotten empowered by it.
Good.
Yes. And so now I am currently helping her to start her own show.
Oh, wonderful.
She gets a little stuck in her head sometimes, like, she's like
Oh,
trying to make things perfect. And I'm like,
yeah.
you just got to do it. Just pull the trigger and go. So hopefully it's soon. And I think she would love to have you on.
Oh, I would love to be on. I would be honored. So please give her my information. You know how to get a hold
I,
of me, so you can just send that right along to her. And I would love
I
to hear from
will.
her.
I will, Karen, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Thank you.
So, well, let's just jump into it. Of course,
Okay.
let's talk about your book. Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. It's quite a provocative title. Like, this title is very strong. Can you tell us where that came from and how this all started?
Right. So the title of the book refers to what I think one of the end games, the goals is of these entities that are taking people, and what happened to me. So to jump back a little bit before I get too deep into that, I had to back up and start at the beginning. I was taken my entire life from my earliest memories, and I have memories of these. I didn't go through there, like hypnosis or anything like that. I just had my memories. I don't remember every single time I was taken, but I remember quite a few of them, and most, what I do have are very clear memories, very vivid. And this happened throughout my whole life, and then when I was finally able to stop it, I wasn't dealing with it very well because it caused a lot of trauma in my life. And I had a near death experience. And that near death experience was quite traumatic the way that it happened. So I had some PTSD therapy after the near death experience, which was a wonderful experience in itself. It was just how we got there that was difficult. That therapy helped me learn how to deal with this lifetime of very traumatic abduction scenarios and things that had happened. So once I was able to really deal with that, I really felt led. I really felt like God led me and said, "You've got to share this with someone besides your husband." And I felt led to L.A. Marzulli. And it was one of these conversations with God where I'm like, Lord, I don't even know him. He doesn't know me. Why would he even talk to me? I've never shared this story. I didn't want to share my story necessarily. I wasn't comfortable yet. And it just happened. I emailed him. We ended up connecting at a nearby to where I live, and I did an interview with him. And it ended up being kind of the tent pole, the centerpiece for his fourth movie on the UFO abductions. And from that point on, I started talking to people. People wanted to talk to me after I did that. And I was so nervous because I never thought I would share this story with anyone. And then what I realized is that it was really helpful. It was helpful for me because I met the other people who were in his movie, and I realized I wasn't alone. And then I was talking to other people who said, "You just talked about my life. You just described everything that's happened to me. You have given me hope. I'm not alone anymore. What else happened? How did you do this? How did you get through it?" And that really led me to feel like I needed to write this story. So I wrote it. Wrote it very quickly. It was very easy to write because it's just what happened. It's just the truth is very easy to write. And so it all kind of happened very quickly. LA asked me to write this book, and so I wrote it, and here we are today. And it's been an amazing experience. Just with the people I've been able to talk to and share with, and share how I was able to stop it and how they can stop it too, or just share that they're not alone anymore. Because this is such a subject that no one wants to talk about. You're treated like you're crazy, or insane, or people look at me and like, well, you're not what I expected for someone who's been taken their whole life. And I'm like, well, what did you expect me to look like? And I look like everyone else I've met who's been taken. We're just all normal people. We have jobs, we have families, we have lives. We have to exist outside of the traumas that's happened to us. And we learn how to do that throughout our lives. It's not easy, but we do it. And so that's really been amazing, just being able to share with people, making it okay to talk about. That for me is the best part. Saying it's okay, we can have these conversations. We can talk about what happened to us. We can deal with it. We can get through it, and then we can help others, and we can talk to others, and we can share with others, or whatever it is that we feel led to do. So, it's been an amazing journey, and I'm very, very grateful for it. Like I said, never thought I'd be talking about this ever,
and
but here
and,
we
and
are.
that yeah and that there, you are empowering everyone else by saying it's okay to talk about this. Like, this is not, I'm a normal person, but these extraordinary unknown things have happened to me, but I'm still like you, other than this, and it's
Right,
and it empowers people who've had these experiences, who are too afraid, ashamed, to come forward. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm doing my show, is because I want people to see that it's okay. This is acceptable. Like, I always like to ask questions about the experience. I never actually question the experience that you had. It like, oh, I don't think you had it. No, no, no. We all have our truths. I've had multiple experiences when I was young, paranormal experiences, and it's kind of like, no, I'm done. I'm done with people ridiculing, making fun, or not believing. And I've gotten to a point in my life where I don't need that confirmation anymore. But it's nice to know that when I come forward, or when you come forward, that other people will see this and they'll be like, yeah, it's time. It's time.
right. And you're right. There's a lot of ridicule out there, and a lot of condemnation, and there are people, very well-known people out there, saying that it's like psychotic delusion,
Mm-hmm.
or it's other things, that it's not real. And what happened to us is very real. I mean, these are physical things that happen, with physical scars and emotional scars. And so to tell someone that their pain and their suffering isn't real, that's terrible. No one should have to hear that. And not everyone agrees with my how I feel about these entities and how I feel about all this, and that's
Yep.
okay too. I don't expect everyone to agree with me. I don't expect everyone to feel the same way. I feel very strongly in my conviction as far as how I feel, who and what these things are and what they're doing.
Yep.
And that's my take on it. That's my opinion. But I never disparage anyone else, their thoughts and feelings on it. And our we have to be supportive of one another. There's so much
Yes.
there's so much division out there now, and everyone's taking a side, and
Yes.
do we have to do that? Can we just come at this with love and kindness right now, and be there?
Exactly. There's so much divisiveness, where everybody is like, I need to be over here, and you're over here.
Mhm.
This is black and this is white, and there's no gray. It's like, no, no, like, and but like, I will say, with the cryptid community, such as I'm kind of taking away the story here a little bit, but with Bigfoot, there's the camp that believes it's flesh and blood, and there's a camp that believe that it's some sort of mythical type, or like spiritual type creature.
Right.
But I've talked to some people, where they're saying, well, what I saw was flesh and blood,
Mhm.
but I don't know. It could be this. Like, this is what I saw, but I don't know enough to actually make that decision. And I'm like, that is the kind of attitude that we need. Like, I saw it flesh
Right.
and blood, but it still could have been this, because I don't know.
Right.
And I'm like, yes, there's no experts. There's only experiencers, who have
Exactly.
that evidence, their tales. Mm-hmm.
And the experiencers I've spoken with who've experienced these creatures, these Bigfoot creatures and other type of strange creatures, they've seen fleshly creatures. They hear
Yep.
them, they see them, they are clearly in a space, occupying space. But there is also a spiritual element to them as well, just like we have a spiritual element to us. And so where everyone's, getting in this camp or that camp, I'm like, why can't it be both? And I believe it
Yes.
most certainly is both. And that they just have abilities that are far beyond ours. And this is what I say about the non-human alien entities as well. You
Mm-hmm.
can't fit them into the little box of who we are and where we live on this earth. They are
Yes.
different. They can manipulate space, time, energy, and matter in ways that we do not understand. They don't
Hmm.
fit into our paradigm. They fit into their own paradigm, which is much, much different from ours. So if we try to make them fit, you're going to have people who think there's 16 different things, when in fact we're just dealing with one very cohesive thing, and that is the fallen, in my opinion. These are the fallen angels of the Bible. These are the fallen. There are the ones that are not, and then there are ones who are. And so you're
Yeah.
just dealing with the good and the evil.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, you get all this division, because people don't understand exactly what they are, because we really can't. It doesn't make sense in our minds. Being around them my whole life, I still can't explain easily who and what they are completely. There's no way I ever could, because I'm not one, and I'm
Mm.
not in that realm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That is interesting. So I do want to get into the fallen, but
mhm,
let's go back to some of your experiences then. You were abducted throughout your whole life. Can
yes.
we start with that? Like why were you being abducted? What is your yeah, let's just go why. It-
Sure. That's a really good question. I don't know why.
mm,
They always told me I was special, I was important, that they needed me. What I do know about the about God's kingdom and about everything in general, as far as the universe and in itself, everything outside of Earth and us. It's a very legalistic society, and this is where my friend Vicki Joy Anderson really comes into play, because she understands that extremely well. She's done the research. She, has put that work in. But there have to be permissions given for someone to be
mm,
taken. If I didn't give the permission, someone else had to give permission for me. Um, and so
interesting.
at some point, someone said, and it could be something as simple as the, Eisenhower and the Greada Treaty, or
Hmm.
it could be a family member who was a high level Mason, which I had, or it could be someone I didn't even know who was
Now
associated somehow with me or my family that I wasn't even aware of.
Now, I
Regardless.
have a strange thing here, getting permissions, and
Mhm.
and this kind of goes to vampires, kind of thing, of
It's
like, oh,
just like that.
you have to be invited in, correct?
Yes, exactly. It's the same thing. Threshold covenants, salt covenants, which are essentially blood covenants, all
Yeah.
those things are very real. And when
So,
something like that's made, you have to break those covenants. You have to say you want them
what
broken.
about and this is something I've always thought about. We put welcome mats out in front of our doors.
Right.
Is that not an invitation? Welcome in. Is that an
Well,
invitation to be? I don't
yeah,
know.
it could be seen that way, but it's not I don't put a welcome mat out and say this means anyone can just come in my house, because that's not the
True.
case. You have to be invited to come into my home.
Oh, so you're
So,
saying like intention? There has to be,
yeah,
this is just a
yeah.
false. This is just a piece of paper, but if that piece of paper had intention behind it, then that changes everything,
Yeah, if I
possibly.
put something out there that said, I don't lock my door, everyone's welcome to cross my threshold, that kind of thing,
Mm,
then that would be a whole different
okay.
thing. But, I think that the welcome is something that is a politeness, but it's not an invitation to cross the threshold. You
True.
know,
True.
I mean, so yeah, I never really thought of that before, because I certainly have a welcome mat out. It's just a nice
Hmm.
thing to do, but
Yeah.
it's definitely something I'm going to ask my friend Vicki Joy Anderson about. I know I'm not giving permission by having that out
Yes.
there, but
Yeah.
it would certainly be an interesting segue to try to get in to cross the threshold. But you definitely have to give those permissions.
That
And
permissions. Okay.
the vampire movies, things like that, those come from ancient folklore. All of that comes from somewhere. And where it comes from is the ancient knowledge of that those permissions had to be given.
Yeah.
When you talk about the bridegroom carrying the bride over the threshold, things like that. All of those
Hmm.
are deeply rooted in ancient knowledge and traditions that we just carry forward today, but we don't know why we do them, because we don't take the time to research those things.
Yeah.
It just never occurs to you that there's actually something to that, but there really is something to that. When you break bread with someone, when dine with someone, just so many different things. And like I said, I'll get out of my depth if I talk about it too much. So that's something that you definitely should talk to Vicky, and I'm sure your listeners will enjoy that, because she
For
just
sure.
is amazing in that book. Her book is so great. But Like I said, I could start quoting it, but I would not do it justice. She will definitely do a better
Mhm.
job.
So you believe that someone or something gave permission for you to be experimented on? Like you said, yeah, and I agree with you with that Eisenhower. You know, it's
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's yeah. You can take X amount of people.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That goes back to ancient mythology, ancient texts, ancient literatures, even the Christian Bible. There are stories of the great ones coming down from the sky and trading technology for people, for livestock, for what have you.
Hmm.
And them giving their daughters or their whatever to these. And you go to Genesis 6 where it says the sons of God saw that the women, the daughters of men were beautiful and took of them wives, plural, of
Yeah.
all that they chose. That's when those types of things happen, and then that's where the Nephilim come from, obviously. But I'm
Exactly.
sorry.
And actually, speaking of Genesis 6, I will be having Gary Wayne on here very
Oh
soon
wow.
as well. So that's next week, actually. Next week, he's going to be on.
Oh, well, and I won't go too deep into that because I won't do it justice the way he does either, y'all. He is amazing and the most
Yes.
just he's got the memory and the mind that is just so amazing. So I will be listening to that show. I will be
I
waiting
appreciate that.
eagerly for that show. But he's wonderful, yes. So yeah, so you're talking about, you know, these types of arrangements and agreements that have been made down through the ages. It's
Mhm.
nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun, to quote another Bible verse, but it's true. It's just the same thing rebranded. And that's what I say about, the UFOs and the aliens of today. They're just rebranding things that have always been happening to make them kind of fit into our modern world and what people want to see and hear and make it
Yeah.
shiny and sparkly and interesting and
Into
exciting.
this little box. We'll put everything that's okay into this little box. Yeah.
Exactly. And then they'll do predictive programming and they'll make movies and shows and things like that to kind of get us used to it and ease us
Mhm.
into it. And it used to be the stuff of sci-fi movies, but now it's the stuff that congressional hearings are based on and that people are having closed door meetings and we're not allowed to know or hear everything they're talking about. And then so they leave this giant question mark out there for everyone to just fill in the blanks with whatever they think they might be talking about, which really
Yeah.
starts to create this then crazy amount of speculation out there and pulls people kind of further away from the truth if you're not careful.
It's
So,
true.
but now I mean, our own government is confirming what we've been talking about all these years, back before, 2017 when the New York Times broke the story or when Tucker Carlson, broke his story and now David Grush, the whistleblower and all these things happening. So it's coming into mainstream media, and I had when I wrote this book, I had no idea these types of things would be happening right now. I'm amazed that it doesn't get any more airtime than it does. I mean, you've got a guy on TV saying, "Yeah, we have the crashed craft. Yeah, we have the bodies of the pilots. Yes, they're non-human." And then everyone's like, "Okay, now back to your sitcom or whatever," and nobody
E-
pays attention.
Exactly. Like what are the Kardashians doing, or what's going on
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
Speaking of vampires, I talk about how like I find that a lot of reality TV shows are kind of like vampiric, where it's not taking our blood, but it's taking our energy, and we're just sitting there,
Mhm.
zoned out, and we're being like
Oh yeah.
just sucked of our life pretty much, because time is life, and
Oh
we're
yeah.
just giving it away. We got to be careful how we give that away.
Oh, we do. Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of that. I can get sucked into something and just be like,
Me too.
"Oh, this is fascinating." And I love information shows. I like to learn.
Yes.
But even that will suck you in, and I'm like, "I need to see more, I need to learn more," and I just love to learn, and the same with books, but now I've got 50 books sitting here waiting to be read, and I'm trying to get through them, and I never have enough time, so, maybe that's why God wants to slow me down for this surgery so that I'll read my books, I don't know.
So you'll be in bed and you're like, okay, okay, and but next thing you know, you'll be on your phone watching some videos, how-to videos, or it's like,
Probably
oh no,
watching all the Codex of Curiosities that I have not caught up on yet is what I would do,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
I've got some amazing episodes from the past. There, Walter Bosley, when he talks about Disneyland and the 33rd
oh,
parallel,
cool.
that is crazy. Yeah.
Yes, that one I think I have queued up actually, so I will be
Oh,
watching that.
cool.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of them queued up. I just never have enough time, and that's
I
something I think we're all lacking in is time. But
I
back to your
know.
question, yeah,
Yes.
it was definitely permissions were given somewhere along the way, and being a little kid, you don't know anything about those things. and so that was difficult. And being a little kid, I didn't know even who and what these things were
Hmm.
and why they were taking me, but I knew I was scared all the time. I was
Jesus.
scared every night when I went to bed. I mean, it was a terrifying way to live. And I, talk about write about in the book that there's just a point where I just kind of broke. And, I basically just was able to dissociate from it and learn to live a life of, I don't even think about it. I don't let it come into my day to day, but you can't fully do that. And whenever the sun went down, that's when my life got really scary every
Hmm.
single night. I went my whole life not being able to look out a window at night or watch anything that had anything to do with aliens or UFOs until recently. Now I can, I've gotten
Yeah.
past it more or less, but it's still terrifying, when you grow up that way, just constantly being terrorized. So when people say, well, why don't you think these are benevolent space brothers? Well, because benevolent beings don't kidnap and terrorize little children and rape young women and steal babies and mutilate cows and lambs and other
Yes.
animals. Those aren't the actions of a benevolent being. So that's why I really can't get on board with any of that at all. And I think that's what's something that's missing in most of the, when you look at the different types of, I won't name any of them, but just UFO groups and things in
Yeah.
general, and the information that's out there. One of the other reasons I wanted to write this book is no one's talking about who and what these things really are and what their agenda is and
Hmm.
how you can stop it. And I really thought that was important because that's
Yes.
the question that everyone asks me, what do they want? Why are they doing this? How do I stop it? Being the most important thing.
So what do you think they wanted?
Mhm. Yeah, I really believe this is a breeding program.
Hmm.
There's a couple of different things. One, the late Dr. Chuck Missler used to say Satan's outnumbered 2 to 1 and he's building an army. When Satan fell, he took a third of the angelic beings with them, whatever the heavenly hosts, the sons of God. And we don't know much about those beings. We don't have a lot of information about that. That's, and we don't need it. It's not key to our, being able to live a good life or live salvation, but we do know that they exist. And so he's outnumbered 2 to 1. And since the beginning, he's been trying to create these, half angelic, half human beings, what we call Nephilim,
Yeah.
or hybrid, if you will, whatever you want to call them. Dr. David Jacobs has a book out called Walking Among Us. It came out years ago. And I actually haven't been able to really read it. I've tried, but it's a little too much for me because it's
Yeah.
really real. And when I started to read it, I'm like, this is too close to home. This is exactly, these are people telling the same life that I had. And but he really believes these hybrid entities are everywhere among us. And I don't think he's wrong because, I have friends like my friend Al Matthews, who's in a couple of LA Marzulli's movies. He has experience with these hybrid entities, very real, chilling experiences. He'd be another great guest for you because his experiences are incredible to listen to, and they're out there. They're out there among us, and
What
if you're not paying attention.
how would you describe these hybrid beings? Like I've heard a lot of people talk about hybrids, but I'm like, like what are is there physical characteristics, or is it kind of like mental, or is it mhm.
There's definitely physical characteristics, and it's not always immediately identifiable because they're very close to human looking. A
Yeah.
lot of times their eyes will be bigger or they'll have the ability to change their eyes. When people put those
Mm.
crazy things on YouTube or whatever saying, look, their eyes changed. Well, that
Yeah.
actually does happen. And so while a lot of those are probably hoaxes, that has really happened to friends of mine have watched that happen. I have so many people I've talked to
Jeez.
watched that happen, like going through a drive-through. Or, my friend Al Matthews, this woman that he met on several occasions, she would wear these dark wraparound kind of black sunglasses that covered her eyes mostly, but when they weren't on and she would get upset, her eyes just changed. Um, there are different types through the years as I think they've been perfecting this process as
Hmm.
well. You heard about people seeing their children and they would be really sickly looking, pale skin, really large blue eyes and stringy hair. Then you have the black-eyed kids. That was kind of the next phase of it, and that's where my hybrid children fell in, and I have seen
Jeez.
that, and they look like what was described as the black-eyed kids.
Yeah.
Then after that, they really came more into looking more and more human. So they're perfecting that. How much DNA do you need? They're doing this, in a test tube, a petri dish, basically. So they're
Hmm.
able to tweak it and try to get it right as they're figuring out how to work with our human genome. And as they're messing with us and messing with these hybrid entities, they're figuring out how to make them be able to pass for human. And how much human DNA do you need, how much non-human DNA to be able to be in our environment, to be in our sunlight, to be in our air, to pass for human. And I think they've gotten pretty good at it from what I'm hearing from others who've seen them.
Now, a question with them. So, would they be soulless? Would they be kind of like an empty shell that can be inhabited by maybe like a Nephilim spirit or something like that? Like one of the
Right.
fallen ones, they can move into that.
Exactly. Right. So the Nephilim of the Bible that we know about were when they were killed in the flood. The scripture and the extra canonical books tell us that God said to them, "You're neither human nor angelic." They were somewhere in between. So they are souls, they are spirits. They didn't have a soul, but their
Okay.
spirits were what were cursed to wander the earth. So that's what we know as demons. And there's a lot of misinterpretation when you start talking about demons and demonic. So something can be demonic, and that's just a descriptor as something is evil. But so the demons are the disembodied spirits of one of these hybrid beings, a Nephilim. And then a modern day Nephilim is going to be the same thing. So those spirits could easily inhabit one of these modern day Nephilim. I do believe they inhabit the shorter gray alien entities that most people talk about.
Hmm.
I've written quite a bit about this in the book and for Elia Marzulli's newsletter. Those, I believe, are like an avatar, like a meat suit. They
Yeah.
grow we can grow skin in a lab. It's no great stretch for us to create robots that look human, things like that. They've modeled them after the actual gray entities, which are very different. When I was being taken, the entities that I saw were all different in the same way that humans are all different. So there
Okay.
was a species of gray, but they weren't all the same height. They weren't all the same size. They didn't all have the same facial features. They all look different, just the way we do, but not these little grays. These little grays are like cookie cutters. They all look the same. They all act the same. They don't have mouths that open. They don't have any discernible body parts or organs, like male, female type thing. They look like just a Ken doll or, just nothing. And
Yeah.
they don't have, their eyes don't even move. Their eyes look like it's just a black screen. Um, Whereas the
Really.
ones that aren't these little shorter cookie cutter ones, their eyes move like, ours do. Their eyes are shift in a really freaky way. But the little grays that I think are just like an avatar, I really believe they created those to house either AI, they could house
Hmm.
another entity if it was small enough to get in there, or a demonic entity, because demons need a body to inhabit and able to do anything of real substance, and
Yeah.
they want to be in a body. When Jesus cast out the legion, they asked to be cast into the pigs, so they'd still at least be in a body. They don't care if it's a human body, if it's an animal body, if it's an inanimate object. Back in the days, and still today, people create idols and things like that, and then ask an entity to move into it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
believe that it
That's
would.
like what is that called? Like homunculuses. That is what
It's
that's
like that.
called when you, yeah, when you create these. I know here in Mexico, where I live, there is ones that they call aluches, which are created after 9 days of using like kind of like a corn and clay, and then like putting blood on it and praying to it for 9 days. You create this
Oof.
golem type of creature that is to protect you, is what it
Yeah,
is supposed to do. But
you
that's kind of like that's
that's some
something I stay
scary
away
stuff.
from.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
definitely need to, and I encourage everyone, especially when you're talking about, and not to get too far away from what we were talking about before, but when you're talking about alien entities and UFOs and all this stuff, there are a lot of groups out there, a lot of people who are, let's all go out and summon them. Let's go call them. There's the CE5 stuff. There's the contact in the wherever. I'm not going to say, anything specific because I don't want to point anyone out specifically, but There are groups that do nothing but go out there and get groups together, and they go and they meditate and they try to summon these entities. And I know that from the perspective of what they are, there are fallen and there are non-fallen. I have had an experience with an angelic being. I just listened to Gary Stearman the other day tell me one of his experiences with an angelic being. So there are good ones, a non-fallen, a good angelic being, and then there are the bad, the evil ones. But the problem is, if you're out there summoning these things, you don't know what you're going to get. And a being could show up to you and say, I'm the good guy. I'm here to help you. I'm going to guide you. I'm going to, be with you. I'm going to be your spirit guide. I'm going to be all this stuff. You don't know what you're going to get. First of all, these things are so much more powerful than we are. They have abilities that far outstrip our minuscule abilities here on earth. They can do things that we can't even imagine. And it's like, it's the same as anything here. A bad guy is not going to walk up to you and with a t-shirt on that says, hi, I'm a bank robber, or hi, I'm a purse snatcher, or hi, I'm a carjacker. They don't walk around with that on their t-shirt so that they're coming. They lull you into a false sense of security. They make you think they're a good guy, and then they pounce. And so evil doesn't announce itself as evil. And that's what people don't understand is, you go out with this fascination. People have a fascination with these things, and they want to see them, and they want to be in contact with them. I'm like, no, you really do not. This is not something you want to mess with ever. We are not equipped to deal with these things. We can't fight back without God.
This reminds me so much of, like, when I talk about Ouija boards. I say, you don't know who you're contacting on the other side. It could be your grandma, but it could be some sort of demon saying, hey, I'm your grandma. You have no idea. And what you're saying is, like, it's almost word for word for what I say when I talk about Ouija boards. And I never even thought about, like, CE5 kind of thing of that. And this is a little I've never done it. I actually downloaded the app. I will say I have the app. I've never used it. Now I'm like, okay. So
I don't recommend it.
Knowledge is power.
Don't. Yeah, it's just, and nobody, it doesn't look like it's something bad or scary. It looks like, oh, that could be fun. I want to see one. I want to take a picture. I want to know for myself. Everybody feels that way. I understand that curiosity. I do. But you also don't let your child play with a live rattlesnake out of curiosity or a hot stove. It's dangerous. You keep them away. That's why we're told in the Bible, don't do these things. Not because it's not possible, but because it's dangerous. And we don't understand the kind of danger and harm that we could get ourselves into. So, it is, like a Ouija board, like you said, when someone says they say, well, I know it was my grandma because she could tell me my grandma's favorite color, what my grandma's favorite dress was, what we did when I was 5 years old. I'm like, don't you understand? These demons know all this stuff. They're watching. They collect data. They collect information. When they're taking us, when these entities are kidnapping people, when people are being abducted, they're collecting information and data from us. It's just massive amounts of collection. So they know all of these things already. So they can act like anyone they want, just like they do through a Ouija board or through a seance or anything else, so you don't know, you don't know where they got that information. But just because they know these things doesn't mean that that's that person. It's like identity theft, identity fraud. Someone now can take all your information and go say they're you and buy a car under your name. It doesn't mean it was you.
That's a great analogy, actually, with identity theft, saying, they're portraying to be you and they have all the information they need to be you, but they're not.
But it's not.
Wow.
So it's something to really be aware of, something for people to really just take a lot of caution regarding. If you're not sure about it, you don't have to agree with me, but if you're a praying person, I highly recommend that you pray about it. If you're not, I highly recommend that you just seek answers. You don't have to take my word for it. Go listen to some other people, find some more information, do your research, make sure you're comfortable with what you're getting yourself into, and make sure you're comfortable that you're with getting your family into it, because it's not just yourself that you're exposing to these things. It's everyone else in your household, potentially everyone else in your family. And that's potentially why I was taken and terrorized my whole life. Not because somebody said yeah, just take her, because maybe somebody made mistakes somewhere along the way and they didn't realize it, you know. It probably wasn't, it could have been not on purpose. It could have been on purpose. I don't know. I'll probably never know those answers in my lifetime. And that's okay. I don't need those answers. The
Yeah.
most important answer I got was, how do I stop them? Um, and, that to me was when I figured out, hey, you have the same creator that I do. Once I realized who and what
Interesting.
they were, and I'm like, you have the same creator I do. And I can tell you to leave me alone, and I can call on our creator, and he can intervene for me and make you stay away from me. And once I realized that, boy, were they pissed off,
Wow.
because it was right and they couldn't touch me and they hung out outside my window. And I'm like, no, I'm not having that either. So, no, you can get out from there too. And they tried to come at me in the astral. And there were some things that I know got allowed to happen. I had a long conversation with my friend Vicky Joy Anderson, who I keep bringing up, but she's really integral in this stuff, about why some of these things happen, so that I could see the agreements that I had been making over the years with different people, and then close those doors, end those agreements, get those things out of my life, out of my house, out of my mind, out of my heart, and really end these things once and for all. Because you can be terrorized in many different ways. There are physical abductions, there are astral abductions. Sleep paralysis is a very real thing. Waking paralysis was a very real part of my abduction experiences, because I would be awake and then put into paralysis. So these are all things to consider. And if you're doing this, you're also going to then possibly allow this to happen to your family, to your children, to your friends. And is that really what you want? Are you comfortable enough, putting yourself, and not just yourself, in harm's way, but your family as well? Once I realized that, I was able to make sure my children were safe, and my children's children, and so on. And that's, to me, was a huge relief, just to know that everyone was covered and everyone was
Yeah.
safe. And then they could make choices for themselves, to continue that. If they, I wouldn't want them to ever mess with this stuff, but if they did, that's their choice, not mine. But I've
It's
made sure
true.
they're covered as far as I'm concerned. Nothing I did is ever going to affect them anymore. So
and
it's
and
just
and
something.
you've given them the tools and the information to know, to make a wise decision. At
Right.
least you can take them so far. But I think that's really, really amazing. um can I talk a little bit about these places that you were taken to? Can we
Sure.
go into there, like, can you explain that? Because before this interview, I was telling you about, I've had some abduction dreams, which I might have
Mhm.
to get further into at another time.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear what you've seen, where you've gone.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Mostly I was taken to what I can only describe as a huge underground facility. I say it's underground because I would be taken to these bank of like elevator doors, and these elevators just seemed down forever and ever. We're going down. I knew we're going down. There are no windows. Um, so, and then there were, what I was little, I called them the sideways elevators, because they went side to side. Some went up at an angle or down at an angle. But I now realize it was some sort of high speed transport, like a train or a tram or something, because it was very
Okay.
quiet. And when I was little, we didn't have quiet vehicles. You talk in the 1960s and 70s, everything made a lot of noise. So it took me a long time to figure out, oh, that must have been a train or something, because there were benches and things like that. Sometimes I would wake up and be going through that process. Sometimes I would wake up on the actual transport vessel, which I describe in more detail in my book, and tried to have an AI picture of it so that I could kind of show what it looked like.
Oh, cool.
The ships are pretty much, in my opinion, they are alive. The ships have some sort of a life force to them, because they move, they adjust. Like if I were to move over towards the edge of it, it seemed like it was going down at an angle like this. But if I moved over to the edge of it, it would expand and adjust to fit me. So, and you can see through them, like you can see through the everything underneath you.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense how they work. None of it is anything we have. So
Yeah.
it's so hard to explain, but it is so wild. And I swear they seem to me like alive. There were bench seats in there in those ships that were like kind of grooved out seats, like like those half egg kind of shaped chairs, only they were all just
Okay.
all connected. Yeah. And then some of them formed around you, like held you in.
Mhm.
Then the under where I was taken, sometimes I would wake up and there were waiting areas where there were just like these benches that were kind of built into the wall. So everyone would be sitting along a wall.
Okay.
And everyone is like in a zombified state. It's what we call UFO brain fog. So you don't think and react in the ways you might normally think and react. It's like walking through maple syrup. Everything is slow. You can't get words out. You can't respond and react the way you do when they put you into that state. They just have this ability to put you into a state of just of really lethargy. And they could wipe their hand like over my forehead or over my eyes or even touch my arm and have the ability to change how I felt from pain to no pain at all, from fear to happy or sad
Mhm.
or scared or whatever feeling they wanted me to have, elation, joy. They could impose that feeling on me. And
Wow.
that was, yeah, it's any feeling you can imagine. They could do that. If they weren't happy with me, they could make me feel extreme pain, if they wanted
Jeez.
me to. Yeah, so they have these crazy abilities. But you think about people who say they've experienced hauntings or demonic things. That's a similar thing to what people experience with that. Um, so some of the areas were just massive, huge. It was like there was an area where I would be walking in, there were other humans and alien entities, and it was like the size of a massive like airport or stadium. And everyone kind of was walking in lines to get to wherever they were supposed to go, and everyone kind of knew where to go. I knew where my handler was. We had like this
So
imprint type connection.
when you say like a stadium, like everybody is kind of like, was there stands in the stadium as well?
No,
Like,
no,
or
no.
was it just okay?
Just that size-wise. It was
Okay.
just a
Okay.
big
Sorry.
open area, and then people were funneling into
Mhm.
different areas, into different, like, you know how an airport where you kind of go and then there's security and you're going through this area and then
Yeah.
to another
Yeah. And you
area?
got to everybody move this
That's
way and go this
yeah,
way, and you're kind of
that's the
all,
closest I
I
could
guess,
do.
funneled.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's just a whole bunch of different areas, people getting funneled into these different areas. Um, and then from there, sometimes I would wake up or be taken to, and sometimes I would just wake up where I ended up, like on an exam table, cold steel exam tables. In these rooms, everything is really darkly lit. Everywhere I went down there, everything is super indirectly darkly lit, like red, blue, purple, violet kind of lighting. And it's indirect lighting. Like I could never see where the lights were. Like there's never any lights hanging down or any can lights in the ceilings or anything like that, or lights on the walls or anything. I don't even know how it was lit. I couldn't tell you that. I never could figure that out. And I don't ever remember seeing any kind of a light source. But everything was very dark and indirectly lit. And then the exam rooms where I would end up would be just like a metal steel type table and stuff that I didn't understand, just all kinds of weird gadgets and machinery and clawy thing, just anything you can imagine from like a sci-fi horror movie probably was what was there because it didn't make any sense. Big things they would pull down that look like x-ray machines type things, or needles, or things that they would insert into different areas of my body. I didn't understand. No one tells you what they're doing. So, and it was just always traumatic, and a lot of times when it was painful like that, or they would do this thing over my forehead, and I would just be out and into a sleep state, and then I wouldn't remember anything else that happened during that particular exam. There were areas of the underground area where it was really old looking,
Okay.
and it seemed like it was carved out of stone and just cave like. And that was really wild. And those seemed like personal areas for some of these entities where they had their own space. And of
Okay.
course, I didn't go into. There's only one space like that I ever went into, where my handler, and I guess that was his personal space. Um, but most of it was just hallways and doors and stairs and elevators, and like how like a really big high school might be, just really straightforward,
Yeah.
nothing confusing.
Yes.
Really,
Okay.
I would get lost if I didn't have someone. You know, I could never even imagine to figure out how many levels there were. I never knew where
Wow.
I was in that one labyrinth when I woke up. And I wonder if it was so confusing so that we wouldn't even have a clue where to go if we did try to leave on our own. But
Okay.
I've never had any idea where to go. I mean, there were just so many different types of areas and types of rooms that I can think of that just none of it, it's just I couldn't imagine how to get out, you know.
Yeah.
So and but all this I think is just under our feet, based on what I've experienced. People I don't think that
Seems.
these are coming from other planets. I
Hmm.
don't believe in the many universes type thing theory, but and not that they can't go to other planets or places and aren't familiar with those, because I absolutely think they can. I think they're interdimensional. I think they're extra dimensional. I think they're underdimensional. If that's even a word, but I really do think they exist under our own feet. I mean, we don't know anything about the underground. We don't know
We
anything
don't.
about oceans. Our oceans are so deep you can fit 20 I've 20 Empire State Buildings end to end and still not reach the bottom of
Yeah.
different places that are right offshore. I mean, we don't know anything about our oceans. We've only drilled what 8 miles, I think, into the earth.
Yeah.
We have what our science books told us has nothing to do with fact. It has everything to do with assumptions or what they want us to think or what they want us to know.
What they want us to
Not,
think, or yes,
yeah,
exactly. Like
yes.
I was just watching a documentary recently where they're talking about there was an underwater, well, an underground ocean actually, and they're using sonar and they could hear the waves crashing against the
Right.
shore. Yeah, and it's just like it's just mind blowing that
Yeah.
like this information is just not readily given to us. We have to like fight for it.
And there's like an entire pieces of a destroyed planet under part of the ocean that they've discovered, and that showed up on the news the other day. And I started going down that rabbit hole, and I'm like, I don't have time for this. I am so busy. But that looked really interesting. But I don't doubt that it's there either, too. This is something that came out in one of the science journals. So I'm like, okay, wonder why they're letting us in on that little tidbit now. Um, and then all the high strangeness around Antarctica and everything that happened with Hitler when he took off and where did he go, and he went into South America and the Project Paperclip and Admiral Byrd. And if you start going down these rabbit holes, you realize there's so much more than what we've been told. We have
Exactly, exactly.
no idea.
It's funny because we're every Tuesday. I'm part of a group called the Supernatural Town Hall Sessions, and
Oh,
last
cool.
Tuesday was Antarctica. We're talking about Admiral
Nice.
Byrd, New
Yeah.
Schwabenland, and
Oh, yeah.
yes, yeah,
That sounds fascinating. I'd to check that out too.
yeah. There's so much there is so much out there. We're just not and they'll put up it's like we will be given truthful information, but then they'll put out something that kind of causes us to guess it, not guess, but I mean to double guess what that information was. Like I had a lady, Missy Lay. She had a pale crawler experience, and there's an actual photo out of this pale crawler, but it was discredited because another photo, the exact same photo, was put out with a different timestamp. So because it had there's two different timestamps. So
Mm,
well then it's fake, because there's
yeah.
a second time this is not true. So that and
Right.
she went 3 years down the rabbit hole to prove that that photo is actually legit, and she's like, I have all the receipts to prove that that photo is legit, and I'm like,
Oh gosh.
fantastic.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you think about now that we all have camera phones and we all have a camera and a video recorder in our pocket at all times. So people are starting to capture things. That's when they decide to let AI out of the box, so that now anything you capture, anything you record, someone's going to say, "Oh, that can't be real. That's probably AI." It's conveniently released at a time when people are starting to share valid information about these types of beings like that one. And now it makes people question everything again. The
Yeah.
more information we get, it's the two truths and a lie. We're going to give you this information, but now we're going to tell you why you shouldn't believe it, or
Yeah.
why it might be fake. And so we all have to question everything.
Yeah.
And that's when it comes down to, for me, it comes down to faith. And it comes down to, what do I need? What do I need to know? What's important for me? And what's important for me is, well, I know what I know, and I know what happened to me. And it doesn't, I don't have anything to gain by sharing this story. The only thing I really have to gain is to make it easier for other people to talk about what's happened to them, or not feel alone, or understand that it's okay. Other people have been through it, and you can get through it. You can come out the other side, because this does ruin a lot of people's lives. So there's just, by sharing these types of things, like you said about your friend with the pale crawler, when you try to bring it to light, you're mostly just met with criticism. You don't.
Yeah,
It's not
she
met with
told me.
fanfare.
Yeah, she ended up losing a lot of friends over this all because they're like, "You're nuts," kind of thing, and it, it I think we just have to come to the point where it's just like, this is my truth, and if you don't accept it, well then, bye, kind of thing. We have to be solid
Exactly.
within ourselves on that. But that
Exactly.
is it's really really interesting, yeah. And like I have this saying that I say, I can't see the truth because it is concealed by its lies.
I love that. That's really good. And that is so true.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to, like, the congressional hearings. Every time they got something interesting, they're like, well, we're going to take that behind closed doors or into a skiff, which we all learned what that meant, something we'd never heard before. And then that leaves that whole huge gap of information that is open to interpretation. So now
Yes.
everyone just gets to fill that gap with whatever they want, because we're not given answers. We're given just enough
Hmm.
to, and I think they're just paving the way to make it, to, to make it more comfortable for people as this starts to come out, because it will come out. You can't hide this forever.
Yeah.
And you can't control these entities either. So it's going to come out when they want it to come out, not when we want it to come out. So I think there's a little bit of careful planning going on, so that when it does come out, because our governments, our powers that be, won't be able to control it, that they will at least have some control of the narrative by what they're putting out now. They're giving us just enough, and then they're pulling it back and waiting to see what's going to happen. And they'll give us a
Interesting.
little more, and they're pulling it back, just so that when it does happen, they can still control some of the narrative, because they know they can't control these entities. They know that very well. They're involved. I mean, I
Yeah.
saw humans working with these things. So I have no doubt in my mind that they're working together. No doubt, zero doubt. They are working together, and that is a fact.
Wow. That is, it's fascinating, but also, sorry, as the motorbikes are driving by, that's a part of the joy of being here. But I would say it's fascinating, but it's also terrifying at the same time. It just seeing this is that, and a lot of people are always worried. They're like, oh, when the aliens come, but I'm like, they're already here, but they're afraid that, oh, the aliens are going to attack us, and I'm like, they could have done that. They've already kind of done that in a way where you don't even realize.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, they're going to wipe us out. I'm like, you have no idea that they're already here. They're like, they've been here for so long. Yeah, like we go back to the times of the Bible.
Yeah.
What do you
If they had permission to wipe us out, they would have done so already. What people don't
Mhm.
understand is they don't have that permission. They can't do it by normal means. They have to do it in a whole nother way. They have to get permission, one by one, to start taking out people or groups of people, or infiltrating or corrupting bloodlines or corrupting people's thoughts. And that's what I think the other goal is, aside from creating these hybrid entities, is to get people away from the truth.
Yeah.
To create this false narrative of, oh, well, we are the ones who seeded you, we created you, we're your benevolent space brothers, and that just isn't true. But if they're convincing people of that, and they are, because people are watching shows that put that message out once a week, and this is all over the place, and that's what's popular, because people like that narrative. It's shiny, it's pretty, it's fun to believe in, but it's not true, and it takes people away from the truth. So that puts more people in that army,
Yeah.
because now you're signed up for that, and you're like, yeah, I'm on board with that. Well, you're agreeing to be a party to that, instead of a party to the truth, instead of a party to eternal life, instead of a party to God's forever kingdom that you could be
Yeah.
a part of. And And when you give away that, and you give, you can still, God still wants everyone back. I mean, you don't, it's not like um, it's not there, but they're trying to
Yes.
lure everyone away from it, is what I'm saying. And you've got to be careful, and that's the other thing I've heard people say, well, I'm a Christian, so that means they can't touch me and they can't bother me. I'm like, no, that is not the case.
Hmm.
You're a more valuable commodity to them than the guy who's already, sold his soul at the crossroads. They want you. But what you do need to know is how to protect yourself. And that's very simple. All you have to do is call on your creator, call on God, call on Jesus, say, hey, please, save me, protect me from these things. Put on the full armor of God, be prepared, pray,
Yeah.
protect yourself. We are responsible for protecting ourselves. Put on your mask first and then take care of those around you, because that's how you will save your family and yourself from these things, because they're not kind, they're not benevolent, they're not here to help. you know yes,
Yeah.
they're kind and benevolent angelic beings. I have experienced them, and they are wonderful, and they came and they helped me, and they did what they were called to do, and then they left, and they didn't interfere, and they didn't hurt me. They were just beautiful and lovely and amazing, and then they were gone.
Hmm.
And that's what a good experience should be.
I
There was no
agree. And like I have one listener, Susan, and she has talked about, she's like, she has always believed that, aliens are demonic. They're the fallen angels.
Mhm.
And I said, I believe that too. I said, but with that sort of belief that if aliens are fallen angels, then there has to be the other side, that some aliens are of angelic descent as well, because they were the same.
Right,
And
right.
yes, we have to see
Well,
that's there.
yeah. Look at the Bible, chariots of fire and pillars of fire and
Hmm.
clouds with fiery things coming out of them, and that's how Jesus would ascend and descend, and everyone else. And there's just so much of that in the Bible, and we're talking about the good guys doing that. So
Yeah.
they're all coming in these vehicles of conveyance. They're all coming in these what we call chariots of fire, or spaceships, or flying saucers, or what have you. So, and it just goes back to you're not going to know the difference necessarily, because the bad guys are not going to announce themselves, and that's the problem. That's why you have to be careful. And that's, like I said, that's where it's like, there are snakes that look like rattlesnakes, but they're not
Yeah.
rattlesnakes, and they're not poisonous. But do you want to let your child decide which one of those two to pick up? Of
Nope.
course not. Of course not. But that's essentially what you're doing when you're, going after these things. So you're absolutely right. The good ones are up there, and there's
Yeah.
twice as many of them. So yay, that's great. They're going to be there for us, and we're going to be part of that, a part of that amazing army someday. And that's going to be wonderful. And I can't wait for that day. But right now, that's not where we are.
No, that
Right
is
now,
so
we're
true. And when you're saying about making these covenants or agreeing with these covenants, I often wonder that, we agree, like, to so many things. Have you read the fine print? You just click on something, it's like, oh,
nobody
I
reads it.
want this new nobody reads it. There was a
Yeah.
thing for Facebook where it was an AI generator where they would change your face, and they would put your face into all these really cool things in the
Oh,
fine print. They Someone went through the fine print, and it says, we own the likeliness of your face. Like, we own your face and what it looks like, and we can use it however we see fit. And I'm like, okay. And I never did it. I was like,
yeah.
I'm just
No.
gonna stay up. I'm not saying I haven't used AI, but
Yeah.
I never did that. And it's just, it
We've all used
begs the
AI,
question.
and
Hmm.
we don't realize we have, but we've all used it because it's in our refrigerators that are automatic. No, not mine, but some of them are. It's in
Yep.
our, when we're ordering things, when we're on Amazon, or when we're doing this or that, the other. There is AI in every part of our lives. But
Yes.
it's where you give away, like you said, knowledge of giving away your
Yep.
permissions, giving things away.
Mm,
That's definitely, yeah, it's scary, because we don't know what we're signing. We don't know what we're
no.
doing. But that's why every day I pray to break any covenants, known or unknown to me, that I have
Mm,
made, even if I didn't know I was making them, because that can happen. And that's another place where I'm going to go back to it. Vicki Joy Anderson's book, indispensable. I travel with that book. I love that book. I reference it for people when people have questions, because I'm not a any kind of a deliverance ministry person or anything like that.
yeah.
That's not my ministry. But I have that available if someone wants to learn about it, because it's so important. And all of that is in the Bible, and it's available
Hmm.
to everyone, and you can go on her website and find out all that information as well. But it's so important because, yeah, we sign things every day. We click that box. I agree, but I've never read what I agreed to.
I
And
I I
I appreciate
agree. Yes,
Yeah.
it's and you know what? I'm going to take your advice of, like pray and to break any covenant that I've made that I'm not aware of, that is not for my
Mhm.
highest good, that is not for my best
Yes.
intentions. Yes.
Exactly, exactly. And pray that over your family, and the people you love. I pray that for my friends, my
100%.
family, my loved ones, and just, and pray for discernment, because that's something too, so that I can see clearly. And when I
Yeah,
do that, sometimes something will just be presented to me. It's just like, whoa, I never realized that's what that was. So glad that was brought to my attention. So there's
exactly.
just so many things we're not aware of, and that's okay, because there's a lot of built-in protections around us from God. Thank you, God, because otherwise we wouldn't wouldn't make it. But this is our domain. We have domain here. The earth
Mhm.
is ours. This was a gift given to us. So we have the birthright to this place. That pisses them off to no end. You know, Satan is the prince of the power of the air. So you're
Yeah.
talking air, and I'm not talking like flying saucers and stuff like that, just in the air. We talk airwaves. You're talking things you don't see. You're talking other
Mm.
dimensions. So many things. But this earth is very different, and it's very much ours, and it's our birthright, and that we have to protect. And unfortunately, we don't do a very good job of that. The hybrids being example number one.
Yeah.
So, but it is still ours, and we have to be careful with that. We have to protect it, and that's in ourselves and our families. It's so important.
Wow. I think that's a
Sorry.
great I think that is a great way to wrap this up, Karen. Like, on that note that,
Yeah.
this is ours and we have to protect it. And I want to say thank you so much, Karen. One last time, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? And again, I want to say thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me again. Yeah, we went down some really fun rabbit holes tonight, and we'll have to get
Yes.
together again and touch on some of the other topics, because I know you had a lot of questions that we didn't even get close to, and I'm sorry,
No,
but we
not a
can do it
problem.
again.
I
We
I
can do it
I
again.
like how it flows. When it has a good flow and I don't have to we just let it go.
Yeah,
We just let it go.
right. And excuse my voice, everyone. I've been fighting a sore throat for a couple days, so
Uh,
that's why I've been clearing my throat all night. But you can find me at KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com. That's Karen with an I, WILKINSON author.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram under my name. And you can find links to everything. If you find one of those places, you'll find all the others. And the book is available exclusively at lamarzulli.com or lamarzulli.net, or wherever you find us in person. And if you have any questions, just don't hesitate to reach out to me through my website. I love hearing from people, and I would love to hear from you. If you have just a story you want to share, you just want to know you're not alone, have a question, reach out. Just understand it does sometimes take a while for me to get back to you. It's not always as quickly as as I would like. Sometimes, like in Rye's case, I was right there. The email popped in. I'm, answering emails right when you email me. So it was perfect timing. So we'll hope for that. If you do reach out to me, whoever's listening, I hope I'll hear from you.
Thank you so much, Karen. I really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. Thank you, Rye. I appreciate it so much.
All right. That was Karin Wilkinson. And I've been looking forward to that interview for quite some time. And I definitely want to say thank you again for her for coming on. And she left us with a powerful message. This earth is our birthright, but treat it like that, And if you have any covenants that you've made, any agreements that you think you've made, or maybe ones that you don't know you made, pray, cancel those covenants, cancel those agreements. We have the power to do that. You have the power to do that. So with that, I want to say, everybody keep your curiosity wandering and ensure the light remains lit. I look forward to our next adventure together as we navigate the mysteries that lie ahead. Until our paths cross again, keep your curiosity wandering and ensure the light remains lit.